That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place.
In 1952, Wayne Phillips was a reporter for the New York Times and was attending Columbia University's Russian Institute. It was here that Phillips was approached by a representative of the CIA. A man offered to ensure Phillips a posting in Moscow if he were to agree to be helpful to the agency while there. Phillips was wary of the offer and expressed his doubts on an American journalist cooperating with the clandestine intelligence agency. The representative attempted to put Phillips' doubts to rest by mentioning that the CIA had a working relationship with the Times' then publisher, Arthur Hays Sulzberger, and had other reporters on their payroll. It wouldn't be until 1973 when documents were revealed during the Church Committee investigations into the activities of the CIA that the public would begin to learn just how the CIA was utilizing these reporters as foreign assets in their war of ideologies. This case file joined the theorists as they open your eyes to the secret world of spy guys in Operation Mockingbird.
Welcome to Alien Theorists Theorizing, Case File 204, Operation Mock.
Yeah.
Ing.
Yeah.
Bird.
Yeah.
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 Mockingbird, don't everybody have you heard?
Have you heard?
She's gonna buy me a mockingbird.
She's gonna buy me a mockingbird.
And if that mockingbird don't sing, she gonna buy me a diamond ring.
Diamond ring.
I'm Braden.
I'm Zell.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Andrew.
That was a magnificent rendition.
Fantastic.
To say the least.
It's fucking two parts of the Purple Wizards here. It's two parts of the Purple Wizards. What do you want from us? We're professionals. Come on.
Buddy, you just outed us. We're supposed to be like Daft Punk.
They know.
Well,
they've heard these sultry voices before. They can recognize them.
Daft Punk has released songs, though.
You guys are definitely daft.
So I thought we were on Spotify. Did they drop us too off that? They dropped the Purple Whiz?
I got rid of everything affiliated with any member of the show.
They dropped the Purple Whiz. God damn it, Dan. You had to say all those racist things and get us kicked off Spotify? God damn it.
What
you and that horse dewormer just couldn't keep quiet about it, eh?
Extremely hot takes. You know, too hot to handle.
I got 1 second. There's some fucking bullshit going on here.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, what the fuck?
The following announcement has been paid for by Alien Theorists Illuminati.
They're back.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Braden, Zell, Dan, Andrew, Byron, Scotty. Holy cow, there's no way you guys make any money on this podcast. You guys got enough people on here. Why don't you get some more people? Maybe hire some aliens or something. No, but really, hey, it's Badass Billy Gunn. Hey, I want to congratulate you on 200 episodes of your podcast. This is actually sent to me, to send to you, to send to everybody from ATI.
Fucking guys.
He is congratulating you also on 200 episodes. I guess he's an alien theorist, whatever you call those things. But anyway, congrats, guys. Maybe one day you'll make this podcast good and put Badass Billy Gunn on there because I make things better. And yeah, Mr. Conspiracy, suck dick.
That's hilarious.
Well, you heard it. Billy
Suck
Gunn
it.
said it. Mr. Az said it. So.
Suck it, conspiracy.
Suck it.
Damn.
That's funny. Oh, dude.
Conspiracy's going to love that shout out.
I
Ooh,
guarantee
boy.
Honestly?
you, conspiracy is having flashbacks of his childhood of all the suckets he got growing up.
Honestly, is it bad that I'm a little envious that he didn't give me the suck it?
No, not.
I'm like,
Hey, I'm going to be honest here. That's the OG Cheeks. That's your
Yeah.
fucking mentor, Braden.
that's Big Daddy Cheeks right there.
Daddy.
That's
Cheeks.
Mr. Ass.
Yeah.
Like, that's big.
His finisher was the famouser.
We got
This guy's
ourselves
such
a
beauty.
secret society that somehow just gets wrestlers to send us messages. that's
Whole
the,
WWE's
that's
in
what
on
they're
it.
up to.
Maybe the ATI is like, maybe they're wrestlers.
Alien wrestlers.
I mean, we did have Raven on the show
Briefly.
for briefly,
Real brief.
real briefly.
Still fucking cool, though.
It was still sweet.
That is cool.
We never really followed up. I'm sure we get him back, but
Badass Billy Gunn. That's dope.
So dope.
Well, thanks ATI for that.
Yeah.
but stop.
guys are beauties.
I've had enough of the computer hacks.
Yeah, they shut me down in after hours last week too.
They just I get a video pop up and everything is controlled remotely, and they just take over my screen. I don't appreciate it.
So we got some high tech.
What if the
hackers out
fucking,
there.
is it the Reanimatron? Is he running ATI?
Maybe he. Well, it's not a he. It's an it.
She?
but
It's a
It? I don't know.
an entity.
I don't know. Yeah.
Listen, I might have to give a call over to Hysteria 51, see if that's their fucking conspiracy bot coming over. Better rein that motherfucker in, because we're not going to have that shit, no robotic shit here. They better rein C-bot in, because if he's fucking traversing over,
No,
we're going to have legal battles.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess I'm back now. So
Brent, John, this is your notice. You've been served.
all right, back to the case file. There we go.
Let's go. Operation Mockingbird. This is an interesting one. Well, they're all interesting ones, but this one's one of those ones where it's like, trust thy government, and then the
Were they all
government is.
interesting? We talked about a lighthouse one time. That one fucking sucked.
I love the lighthouse one.
What's that guy's name again?
Colin. He sucked.
Fuck you,
Yeah,
Colin.
yeah.
You fucking
Come on,
blew it.
Colin.
We didn't forget Colin.
Yeah, you think we forgot?
We didn't forget.
But this is one of those ones where it's like, you point to, like, I point to looking into when people are like, yeah, the government comes out and says this. I'm like, well,
They also
they wouldn't do it. It's illegal. They wouldn't do this. Well, it's like, well, you're about to find out that, sometimes with unlimited, like a blank check and no oversight, just do whatever the fuck they want.
get
So
shit
without
done.
further ado, let's get into it.
So if you're talking about Project or Operation Mockingbird, it's actually two separate things. So you have Project Mockingbird and you have Operation Mockingbird. Now, Project Mockingbird refers to a telephone tapping of two news journalists from syndicated news column by the CIA in 1963. Now, we didn't find out about the actual tapping of the phones until there was a declassification of about 700 pages of a report that came out during the Church Committee investigation, which we've talked about before. The Church Committee was the big investigation that brought things like MK Ultra, like Midnight Climax, like all the crazy shit that the CIA did back in there.
Brought a little oversight.
Yeah,
Reined in a bit.
kind of said, why are we guys giving you all this money and what have you been doing with it? And all of this shit isn't completely insane.
Basically, it was, what do you mean you want to look at our books?
Yeah, pretty much.
Dude, it's always long after either these guys are long retired or most of them are deceased. Like that's when all the shit comes out.
This 700-page report, if you want to read the original one, is published like on the CIA website. It was, people have requested many times. It's also known as the Family Jewels. So it's a big report of all the kind of crazy stuff, documents, testimonies, memos, all of that shit that came out during the Church Committee. And then there's also subsequent investigations after that. So what kicked off the investigation and why the CIA felt like they had to tap these two specific journalists was that the New York Times actually published a front page story about the vulnerabilities of Soviet land-based missiles. The reporter that had published this article was named Harry Baldwin. Now, Harry Baldwin was actually kind of pretty much this dude, from what I read about him, was like an OG.
He's one of the many Baldwin brothers, right? I think the brothers span the test of time, right? He's the oldest Baldwin. Is that correct?
He split into the separate Baldwins. Like once he's like, yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that was in Flintstones, isn't he?
When Alec and then Steven do the fusion dance, they make Harry Baldwin.
Harry Baldwin, yeah.
From what I learned about Harry Baldwin was very much a well-known figure within the intelligence and defense community in the United States government. Like they knew about him. They knew what he did. He was a reporter that the New York Times gave him a lot of leeway. He pretty much did whatever the fuck he wanted. It wasn't like he really reported in. He just kind of wrote whatever he wanted. They gave him the leeway to write about whatever he wanted.
He's got diplomatic immunity of journalism.
Pretty much.
Whatever the fuck he wanted.
He formed a lot of relationships with the higher ups. Like he was kind of in with just about everybody at the head honchos of the Pentagon. He was really known for never really spending a lot of time with like the smaller people, the really low level things. He always went straight to the top. He'd be like sitting in in the defense secretary or like a director's office, just like hanging out when they showed up. And they're like, God damn it. Like when this guy showed up, they're like, fuck.
Yeah, because it's like he was always seemingly, he had really good questions, and sometimes it seemed if he had really, really good sources, so he would be a constant thorn in some of these guys' thigh or thigh,
wherever,
both hurt.
Side, anywhere in the body.
It's gonna be shitty either way.
Yeah,
so.
Either way.
So the article, what they were most concerned about is not necessarily that it was publishing these. What the article made clear was that the Soviet land-based missiles were basically soft targets at the point. Like at this point, the Soviets hadn't really built a lot of like underground missile bunkers. Like they didn't have a bunch of like the Nike missile sites that we had. They're buried way deep in the ground, basically hindering their ability to make like a first. Like if we were to strike first, we would have you would be able to potentially knock out a majority of their capability to make a second strike.
Right.
Now, the article showed a lot of this. It didn't say exactly how the United States government had gone about gathering the information about how they had gotten it, but it did obviously draw on a lot of intelligence that was being gathered by the U.S. satellite program called Corona. Now, Corona was it was a satellite imaging things. They had just put these satellites up in 1960. And this, it's kind of funny because they put the satellites up after, like within months after Dwight Eisenhower had agreed not to send any more U-2s across the Soviet Union.
And they're like,
yeah, sure. No more U-2s. Don't worry about it. It's like, we don't need them anymore.
Quick, two more.
Couple more. Don't tell anyone.
So the CIA actually was, John F. Kennedy apparently had a habit or a kind of routine in the morning where as soon as he woke up, he would read all of the newspapers that were national publications all over the United States. So, Washington Post, New York Times, Western publications and things like this. And then he would take that information and then he would ask all of his cabinet members, like, had they seen the stories that were within that had been published. Therefore, he would gauge the intelligence that they had. Like he would kind of base judgments, which I think is a pretty good thing. It's like, have you heard about this? And if they said no, then he'd be like, why the fuck haven't you heard about it? And it's in the Washington Post.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's like basically he's like, we should be ahead of all of this. We should be in front of all of this because this is coming from us.
Yeah. Why is this information in the newspaper and you didn't know that it's in the newspaper, essentially? So at this time, John F. Kennedy's brother, Robert Kennedy, was also the attorney general.
Why are we in the news again?
Why are we?
And I think it's been commented on by a couple of like historians and stuff where, the Kennedy brothers apparently kind of had this relationship where it would be like, if Jack got worked up about something, then he would call Robert over at the Justice Department, and essentially they would work each other up, and then Robert would be like, yeah, well, let's go fuck him up, like that's whatever. That's kind of what they did, I suppose. And JFK asked Robert apparently to bring in the FBI to investigate where Baldwin was getting his information, because this was like somebody was. To him, he considered this like a dangerous leak. He felt like somebody's leaking information from our secret programs. We need to find out who it is. You need to lean on the FBI to tell them to go start investigating this shit. That's kind of where they were coming from.
It was a matter of national security.
Right.
He's like,
And so in their minds,
I want Harry Baldwin's head on a platter.
And so, according to declassified documents, the director of Central Intelligence at the time, who was John McCone, ordered warrantless wiretaps on at least 2 reporters that they ended up doing. They sent out a lot of investigators before. It wasn't just like they figured out it was these 2. There was like months of investigation trying to question people, showing up at like reporters' offices and stuff, like FBI, basically your G-men showing up at all these offices and being like, why, we need to ask you a couple questions, Men in Black, real type shit. And then they kind of zoomed in, or they kind of homed in on the 2 reporters who were Robert S. Allen and Paul Scott.
Wait, so they asked FBI to do this, but the CIA did it in the end?
Well, the FBI did most of like the legwork. Like the FBI went in and did the investigations and things like this, and then the CIA ended up going in and tapping phones.
There came a time when the FBI is like, listen, there's lines we'll cross, and there's just some lines we won't cross. And the CIA's like they're like, we'll cross them. Over here, we'll cross them.
Everybody knows if you have a 3-letter organization, you're good. Nothing can happen. You got diplomatic immunity. It's all good. Do whatever the fuck you want. It's evident.
So the FBI does the legwork. They're like, it might be these 2 guys in CIA, but they're like, we're not going to tap their phones.
Yeah, but we're not going to tap their phones. Like we're not going to do that.
We'll do it.
And the CIA was like, yeah, we'll do it.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, we don't care. Want to do some? You want to do some DMT or some shit?
Yeah, you want to drop?
You want to come watch this guy? We're gonna drug him
before we do it.
We're gonna drug him and put him with a hooker. You want to come watch? We'll do the tap right after.
No. I don't think we got to drug it. We don't have to drug them and put the hookers in. Just tap the phones.
Sure.
Well, we're gonna do it anyways.
Pure LSD, man. Pure LSD.
It's not as fun, but I guess we could just tap the phones.
We said it like in the pre-show where we were talking. I said like the CIA in this time really kind of reminded me of that like a Wolf of Wall Street movie where it's like it was just it seemed like pandemonium. Like
you're just dropping like, acid and ripping coke and just being like, rules.
I'm not fucking leaving. Gonna watch this guy bang this hooker on LSD.
Tap the phones. Tap the phones. Tap all the phones.
All the phones.
Whoa! You know what my favorite part about that is though? It's like, yeah, we're gonna illegally tap these reporters' phones to find out what's going on, and then like, because when was this? When they initially did this? This is what, early 60s?
Yeah.
Yep.
63.
And it wasn't until the 70s we're like, wait, why don't we do this to all the fucking organized crime mafioso motherfuckers and install RICO and bust all these fucking guys. Like, let's start with innocent reporters, and then we'll go against the worst criminals on, plaguing fucking America.
Yeah, start with the free press. We'll work our way up to criminal mobs in the future.
Yeah, man, the CIA at this time though was like, dude, they were big dick swinging because they basically had a blank check from the government. The Cold War was heated up, and they had their only rules were to protect America from the Soviets. Like that's
that was their prerogative, and then it was do whatever it takes. Like,
who protects America from the CIA is what I want to know.
Hey, the Soviets.
Nobody.
Nobody. It was wild. It's a wild time. They had almost no oversight at all. It was just like, hey, let's do it. No one said we couldn't. Let's do it.
They were relatively new though, right? Like how long have they been around for?
At this time, yeah, they were relatively new, and also the fact that like the people running the CIA and a lot of like the defense, all the 3-letter organizations, that they're all pretty much like they knew each other. They were all friends, or you had a lot that had went to the same universities together. And, back in the US at that time, I mean, that was kind of a big deal. Being alumni was pretty much like you could get away with anything if you were, hey, we went to school together and like, yeah, but it's just that kind of that so camaraderie that comes with that. Or
like the 3-letter names of all these places, basically just like a big frat house.
Yeah.
Those fuckers at CIA, their togas.
And then plus like a lot of them had like served together during World War II. And so a lot of them were just, it was just a big old boys club, and they just go out and like, let's go have a 6 martini lunch and go fucking tap some phones. Like,
yeah. Like, oh no, this is all billable. We're talking business.
I wouldn't totally disagree with you on that. But now the phone tapping didn't go exactly as planned. The CIA isn't as super sneaky as you would actually think. The CIA actually got outed, or they actually got their cover blown by one of the reporter's sons who heard voices talking on the phone at one point in the evening. And one of the evenings, like picked up the phone, heard voices, and he heard 2 agents discussing what was going on and what they were doing.
Because this is back like for switchboard and stuff. So they must have had to like clamp the line or something. They didn't.
Yeah, it's like there's like a van sitting outside the house, just like out there.
They climbed up
sweaty dudes.
They climbed up their tower up there and just clamped onto the line. They didn't quite do it right, and they're sending their voices into the house.
But I believe we have actual audio of that event. Is that correct? I think we do.
Yeah. It's right. It's
Can
right
we pull
here.
that up?
It's right here.
Hey, Johnny, did you see the new episode of Batman yesterday? It was a gas.
Oh, golly, I missed it. My dad was Bogart in the TV set watching Horgan's Heroes. Show's a bummer.
Oh, man, Hogan's Hero is such a drag. I hate that show.
God damn it, Jim. Keep it down.
Yeah, but on the bright side, my parents got me the new Jimi Hendrix record for my birthday, Far Out.
Oh, man, my parents refuse to listen to anything other than Elvis. Guy's a real downer.
God damn it, Jim. That's the goddamn king he's talking about.
God damn it, Jim, you're going to blow our cover. Keep it down.
God damn it, Jim. It's just a couple of kids. It's a waste of our goddamn time.
Jim?
Go for Jim.
Who's Jim?
What?
I'm Jim, goddammit.
I know.
Did you hear that?
Hear what?
That.
This?
Yeah, that.
What?
God damn it, Jim, our cover's blowing.
God damn it, Jim, I got this. Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Ma.
God damn it, Jim, somebody get Dr. Sprinkle on the line.
God damn it.
Exact recording.
Could you imagine? It's funny because like it was reported that like he told his mom, he told his parents, he's like, I fucking heard someone else on the line. I heard them. And his parents were like, what?
Nah.
Like,
you're crazy.
Like, you're crazy. And then like later when all these reports come out, like the mom goes back and is like, do you remember telling you that? And he's like, fucking told us so.
Mom, you told me it was because I fucking sit in front of the TV too close, but you're wrong.
Yeah.
You were fucking wrong. I heard people. I fucking hurt them.
It's crazy to think that this whole thing could have been blown up and like, you know, found out way earlier on had people just given their kids the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I mean, come on. To be fair, Think about when you were that age, fucking idiots.
Dude, well, anyone could pick up the receiver in your house, and you could all you could talk to each other. So I don't know. Someone you could have thought you left it off the hook and
yes,
picking up voices.
But here's the thing:
room.
if you and me, Zell, if hold on, like if you call Dan on the phone, Zell, hypothetically, you call Dan on the telephone, and then you guys were chatting, and you heard, "God damn it, it's just the bottom two theorists." You'd be like, "Wait a minute."
I'm sounding the alarm right then and there.
Throwing some stones. but you know what I mean? But that's what happened with these kids. Is like they started talking and they said, right? Someone on the line goes, "It's just a couple of kids." You'd be like, "What?" That insinuates to me, like if I was listening to this, it's like it's a couple of idiots. I'd be like, "That's me. I'm an idiot. I'm the idiot here." So who's listening? Like, what the fuck? It's not like they just heard another conversation. They heard a conversation like specifically mentioning them, which is to me, I'm like, it would be alarming. Like I would right away be like, "Mom, what the fuck? The phone's wrong. Something's wrong with the phone."
Yeah, I would agree. So the moms didn't. If they did tell the parents, then they didn't believe them for a while.
No, I would have said something like that to my mom, and I would have got a shoe across the face.
Back upside the head,
right across the room.
So that's Project Mockingbird, which is an actual thing, actually happened, actually documented, and that's the name that they use to refer to it.
Super illegal.
Now
that's the worst part.
I mean, it's in a gray area. Like, yeah, now it's super illegal.
Dan, did you get hired by the CIA here?
Well, I'm saying back then, like we said, there was no oversight. There was no laws against some of this stuff. And it was kind of like the jurisdiction of who was going to do this was kind of up in the air. It was a weird time. It was a weird time.
Yeah, but you know the worst part?
It is legal now.
The worst part about this shit, though, is it's that ammo. Because, you know, we're getting these arguments where everybody's like, "Oh, vaccine passports, there's microchips, they're drugging you, they're doing all these things." And you're like, "Shut up, you're wrong. Read a fucking book." And they're like, "What about Mockingbird? What about MK Ultra?" And you're like, I got nothing to say.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So,
I got nothing to say here.
Here's the thing. So usually when they're talking about Mockingbird, this is what they're talking. They're not talking actually about that Project Mockingbird, which we just described and we went through. What most in the conspiracy world, when they mention Mockingbird or they refer to Operation Mockingbird, what they're actually talking about or they're referring to is an alleged large-scale project that's been undertaken by the CIA that began in the 1950s, or they believe began in the 1950s, in where the CIA went out to actively recruit American journalists into a huge global propaganda network.
Dan, oh my God, hold on a second.
Sense.
Hold on a second.
America doesn't do propaganda. It's only the Russians.
Are you saying that in the 50s, the CIA was making fake news?
Allegedly.
I think admittedly.
Except for all the other reports from Family Jewels.
There is... I want to there are some distinguishing details that I think have to be filled in, but this is what some authors, at least one author, kind of put out, was that what the CIA was doing was recruiting across the publications, American publications, not just journalists, but they're saying all the way up to editors and owners of certain publications, and then putting these people on the payroll and then instructing them to write completely false stories that promoted certain views of the intelligence agency.
Well, and at the time they were really trying to, quell the youth left movement at the time. They wanted to bring it back to pro-America, and so they were fighting this left movement that they thought was a threat. Hippies. Goddamn fucking crusty jugglers, crusty jugglers, Jim. Goddamn, listen, Peter Parker. I need you to write a story tomorrow. Headline: Hippies suck. All right, publish it everywhere.
Does Spider-Man smoke the devil's cabbage? I think so.
And so if people
hold on, sorry, Dan, I don't want to interrupt you again, but I have to. So are we still saying supposedly? Or are we fucking diving into this stuff? This is absolutely fact.
Well, I'm saying that the facts of the matter is that the CIA did have certain special relationships with people in the media. That's a fact.
Many people.
Yeah. Sounds like a pretty opportunistic relationship to me. That sounds pretty good. If you want to spread propaganda.
A lot of relationships that have come forth. But yeah, the catch-all term that they're all connected is what's the alleged part. There's definitely a bunch of stuff where like, you're pushing agendas overseas, either posing as reporters or having reporter informants. But the term that's hard to tie it all together like that, or to prove that it's a one giant operation was never really like they're all connected. But there's many ones are true.
So they're admitting to doing it overseas, just not on home turf.
Well, the contention comes in where it could be argued that they weren't necessarily pushing false stories, like completely false stories. It was either not the CIA doing it, but it was something that it was done willingly. Not like the CIA was instructing them or blackmailing these reporters or these editors necessarily, but in some cases it was just a mutual agreement, or it was something that was done out of a sense of patriotism. There's a lot of stuff, and we'll get into it about exactly some of the cases that are what each side was kind of getting from this. But do we want to take a beer break first, or like?
Yeah, okay. There's a lot of stuff. I like it. Quick beer break. Wrap our heads around it, and we'll be right back.
That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable.
Man, that sunset is gorgeous.
Grill, patio, sunset. Hard to get better than that. Unless you're browsing Carvana's inventory while you soak it all in.
Oh, burger time.
So sit back, get comfortable. Carvana's got thousands of cars under $20,000 just waiting for you.
I could stay here forever.
Carvana, where car buying meets comfort meets convenience. Download the app or visit Carvana.com today.
We're back.
So the CIA had a pretty lucrative and complicated relationship with the media back in the 50s and 60s. What the CIA saw, not the media so much as a tool, but kind of something as a relationship that they could use to place some of their most valuable operatives abroad without exposure. Normally how the relationship would go, according to most sources, is that the CIA would approach certain publications and be able to they would ask, or they would pretty much get a member of the CIA put on the payroll, essentially posing as a reporter. And then it would be easy for them to get into another country than you would, putting, John Steiner, CIA over there and be like, "Hi, I'm John Steiner. I'm from the CIA. Can you tell me all your secrets? That'd be great." No, you send him over there posing as a reporter from the New York Times.
That was a good Bill Clinton.
That was a great Bill Clinton.
So if you send somebody over there under a cover of being a reporter, there is the certain amount of freedom that reporters had at the time to move between different countries, different cities, move into certain areas that you wouldn't want to find, CIA intelligence operatives, defense wouldn't be able to get to. And they have access to information and people that, of course, CIA operatives didn't have access to. So that was one of the facets of the relationship between the CIA and the media. Now, the CIA also had a pretty successful recruiting program that they kind of use. They would utilize in the field
We'll
journalists.
pay you money to work for us.
We'll pay you money to tell us what you see.
You spy on people and you get paid. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, they would pay journalists essentially to kind of spy.
Pretty much,
they would ask them. They kind of ask them, be like, "Hey, can you do us a solid?" And when you're going to Yugoslavia, right? So could you just like take some real detailed notes about what you're doing? Have they paved the streets? How many planes did you see?
How many Russians
signs of
are
military
there?
presence? How many Soviets did you see? If you happen to meet any Soviets, can you get their name? Make sure you spell it right.
So are they sending them on these trips? Like, are they paying for these trips? Or are they just like, hey, hanging out at the airport? Hey, sir. Hey, where are you going? Hey,
sometimes they reimburse them and stuff for for travel and hotel and expenses.
Yeah, sometimes they would actually pay them. Like they would put some of them actually on the payroll and they would reimburse them for stuff like that. But I think it would mostly be like incidentally, like if they were going, they're like, hey, you're going here anyways. Can you do a couple things for us like while you're there?
Well, yeah. And just the sentiment of those days was like, it was the ideology battle. So people like felt like to serve their country and that if they could, they would be like, yeah, okay. They thought it was like the right thing to do.
And honestly, it's the best fucking thing for the CIA because I'm like, this motherfucker gets caught. Guess what? He didn't work for us. We don't know who this guy is. He's just a reporter. He doesn't work for us. And we have evidence of this. It's like, what's the pilot's name? Barry Seal. Right?
Oh,
he was the one. Right?
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Tom Cruise. He was the one. The CIA hired him to basically be a drug runner for them and drop drugs. And then when the shit got bad, they're just like, "You don't work for the CIA, you drug dealer."
It's all done in cash, no paper trail,
right? And dude, it's honestly genius because you're like you just wash your hands of it. Anyone gets caught or anything, you're like, this man does not work for us.
To be fair, though, even now that we have all this evidence that they've done awful things, nobody's getting in trouble. Like nothing's been done. Like,
well, it was more like a lot of the reporters in there, like it wasn't like the CIA was forcing them to do these things. They would ask them to do this, and then a lot of the journalists, like biographies and stuff, have like said that a lot of the journalists and things have saw it as almost like a mutually beneficial relationship. It's like, okay, they're going to get some information that I just need to be a little bit more observant than I would normally. So I get back this information. I get a little bit of extra cash in my pocket. Plus, the other benefit was that reporters got out of it is that back then, if you were a reporter and you had a relationship with the CIA, there was like this weird little, not weird, but there was kind of a unspoken kind of tier system, or like they would put you at the top. It would move your career. It was a very good thing to have and have a relationship with the CIA, and people kind of knew about it. And then you would move up in the news journalist world. So
they're kind of like independent contractors.
But it's like if people knew you had an in at the CIA, like as a journalist, like that, it would look good on your, if you could set, you throw that in there, they'd be like, yeah, okay, we want this guy.
This guy's down to fuck. He's down to do anything. We know that this guy's shady as shit. Yeah, hire him.
Well,
please get us the best story.
This guy will do whatever the fuck we want.
It's like, yeah, they'd be like, this guy's going to get a good story because he's got ins at the CIA.
Well, let's be realistic here. Let's be realistic.
You want pictures of Spider-Man? That guy works at the CIA. He's got him.
If I went on a trip to Vegas and or somewhere, and then in the airport, like some guys in, what are those trench coats called? From
trench coats?
Trench coats?
Yeah. Guys that are trying to sell you clocks?
No, what are they called? What is it? And Jerry Seinfeld's dad sells them in Seinfeld. Oh. I can't remember the fucking name. Anyways, two guys come up wearing those, and then they're like, "Hey, when you go to Vegas, right? We know you're staying at the Bellagio. We know you do this dumbass podcast. All right, we just need you to ask around, look for Thomas Aquinas, find out, tell us what he does." I'd be like, "Sure, sure." I'd be in Vegas. Who's Thomas Aquinas? Where is he? I like, no problem. I'll do it. Some extra cash? No problem at all.
It became almost kind of like a procedure that a lot of reporters and stuff, like they would get off the boat after taking going to Europe to correspond for a publication, and when they would get back, they would be met on the pier by agents from the CIA and then be debriefed
from handshakes
when they got back
all around.
And it was almost kind of like a point of jealousy. Some people would say that, like, if you didn't get picked, if the CIA wasn't like, hey, you, and not you, but it's like you and you come with us, and then they would ask him questions about, hey, what did you see while you were over there? It became kind of a thing. It's like almost like, well, why didn't you pick me? I want to
I don't want to be the last guy to get picked for dodgeball.
That's right. Bullshit. So that's another part of the puzzle that they kind of had.
It's so weird. Like we talk about it, like it's like everyone kind of knew, yet it was still a secret for many years. Like, like everyone who knew about it was just like, let's take this for a while. I'm not going to tell anybody. And then you find out later, 30 years later, like, everyone kind of knew. Yeah, they're doing this.
It's literally every single one of these fucking media guys was just collecting extra pay. Like, why not, right?
It's human nature. Someone offers you a little incentive. You're like, I'm already going there. Or like, I have the power to print stories. I choose what stories. You tell me to choose this story. I look at them like, yeah, why not? This one's fine. This, a few bucks here, free travel, hotel.
But the same thing. This is a slippery fucking slope.
It is,
right? Because before this, this basically, like in my eyes, this attacks journalistic integrity for the past 50 years. For the past, ever since the 50s, actually, right? 71 years. Because I'm like, you had the CIA doing this and like having them, work on this propaganda for them and, write stories that, that they narrated. And it's like, now it's like, you start moving on. It's like people take that information, they move from the agency and, they move into corporations. They're like, we can buy this paper. We can buy this news station, right? And then it starts to seem like this was a slippery slope that they didn't realize that now there's a lot of fingers in the pot of news. And back then, God, it must have been so easy for them back then because you're like, it's in the news, everyone will believe it because there's no other source of information.
There's only so many news publications. You can't really.
Right. We put it in the New York Times. No one's going to question it because there's not a rival news source that's accessible, right? It's like you could easily write stories to manipulate towards your goals.
Yeah, it was way different.
Now everybody that has a social media account's a fucking propaganda journalist.
Yeah.
You can share whatever the fuck you want, and it can go everywhere.
You can word it eloquently. You could sound smart, make it believable, and boom, you have yourself some news. And then it's everywhere.
Bound to fuck up some grammar or something. For sure.
Well, we would be terrible propagandists.
Well, Dan would be great.
Yeah, Dan would be fine.
Oh, Dan
the man.
Dan, what are you up to?
Dan the man.
Hey, Dan
CIA
lives close
intelligent
to DC.
That's listening in. Our buddy Dan over here, he could do some
Dan.
fake news for you, no problem.
Yeah, he probably already does.
So on the topic of fake news. So not only was the CIA attempting to kind of recruit reporters or bring reporters in, and not only using reporters to recruit foreign nationals to kind of become sources of information on Soviet activities going over there, but there were some recorded instances of the CIA where they would simply create a newspaper or a news service, not necessarily in the United States. I don't think I don't think there's any. From what I was researching, there weren't any specific cases that took place on American soil. Foreign outlets was a different, they were considered fair game.
On American soil, they didn't, as far as we know, they didn't create news. They just maybe influenced stories. But,
right, they influenced stories, but again, it's like the people and whatever. But outside of the United States, there were instances where the CIA would either, like I said, create a newspaper or a news service, or they would pay the bills through some bogus corporation, or in other instances, they would actually directly or indirectly supply capital to an entrepreneur that appeared at the right moment to bail out a news organization that was about to go under.
Interesting. So there's no fucking rules overseas, boys.
Well, I mean, it's, this is unheard of. I mean, like it makes me think that, like, we talked about the IRA and that kind of stuff. And
we talked about specifically Operation Infection. Like that's one of them.
Right. And that's the AIDS one in the 80s where they, Russian.
Yeah, that random newspaper in fucking India.
Yeah, they own a paper in India. They basically make that news station run an article saying that the CIA created AIDS and is infecting people in the States, and then they cite their own story as a source, and then it takes off. It's basically news. Like a viral hit. But when I was looking at that, I went, man, the Russians, they were sneaky. And then I went, I'm looking at this and I'm like, yeah, well, we started, like we were like the North, like Americans, they were doing it way before that.
The only difference in this situation between us and the Soviet Union at the time is the Soviet Union, the people knew they were being oppressed. Like America had no fucking idea, right?
Well, like so to speak on the topic of having the Soviet Union, like, no, the Soviet was doing this stuff before Operation Infection.
Yes.
Like
that was their first hit.
That's one they admitted to and took, like.
Well, I mean, there was a time where hardly any left-wing newspaper in Europe wasn't financed directly by Moscow.
Yeah.
Like
I read that.
Any type of left-wing, like hard left-wing one was going to be funded by Moscow, probably had the KGB backing them, any of that kind of stuff. Like, so the CIA at this point was kind of thinking, like Zell said, it became a battle of ideologies. It's a Cold War. We're not all out, but you're going to be fighting with ideas. So the best way to do that and disseminate get those ideas out there was through, news publications. So you're fighting fire with fire. That was their idea.
Dude, not even just news, like you sponsored parties or fundraisers or, charity drives, but all in the name of this ideology and, funded by this people. And you kind of sneak in messages and pro communist.
Right. And we talked about that. We've talked about that in Operation Gladio.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that where it's like the CIA was backing certain political groups, certain, personal action groups, those things, committees, whatever, like to anti-communist groups. If you said we don't like communists and we don't want communists in our country, then the CIA was going to show up at some point and be like, here's a big suitcase of money.
Yeah, here.
Go.
Help
I don't like communists.
Help us, help you.
Send me some money.
But in the end, with some of these, what it kind of worked out to is the CIA kind of figured out that owning these things was costly. Running an entire a newspaper publication thing of having to pay out staff, having to do all this stuff, ends up being costly.
Listen, God damn it, we don't have a page 6 girl again. Someone get on it right now. This is ridiculous. Tony, where's that fluff piece?
And it becomes very difficult to conceal your hand in all of this. So that's one of the reasons that, the CIA says that all such relationships kind of ended, because it's impossible to do. Especially now, it'd be really hard to do. But that's one of the reasons that they said they stopped doing it, or they stopped kind of taking these kinds of actions. And, it just becomes one of those things that I think that I would say, like, media, or kind of manipulating the media or putting out like totally fake stories, ends up like coming back to bite you. I mean, that's one of the things that I came across, was that the CIA said that we put these stories out and then they end up doubling back on us and fucking up our shit. And it's like, why would I want to do that? Like, it's just that'd be a little bit. They kind of figured out that it's like, this is really not a great idea.
God damn it, Jim, this shit's fucked.
Yeah. Or you end up, I think there's an incident, or they put out a news story about the movements of certain Viet Cong or something like that in Vietnam. And then they ended up finding out that story ended up being kind of part of, started freaking out U.S. soldiers. Like, the story kind of went back and doubled back on the U.S. soldiers, and then the U.S. soldiers got wrong intelligence because they were citing the newspaper article that the CIA had put out about like a certain Viet Cong movement or something like that. So it's just they found out real quick. They're like, oh shit.
You try and sway public opinion and it ends up biting your troops in the ass.
So yeah, but it's just, I don't know. It's a lot of that stuff that the CIA's relationship with the media has always been kind of a thing. But like Braden said, I think there's a lot to be said because there were reporters at the time that like kind of refused, that wouldn't do these things, or they felt like it put their journalistic integrity at risk. They'd be like, I won't do that, or we won't do that. A lot of the people who own, like the owners of the newspapers, apparently, were actually like sympathetic. And I mean, I don't know how you can fault them because it's just their view, right? Like back at that time, it was a very different time. The sentiment of the time was very different towards how people viewed the government, the U.S. government, and the intelligence services. At that time, it's like, well, I'm trying to help my country, and that's kind of how they saw it. And if I am able to do that, I mean, a lot of the owners of the papers were kind of felt that it was their patriotic or their civic duty to aid them in any way. So like the New York Times was always kind of approached first because they had a very well-developed like foreign correspondent system. Like they had foreign correspondents like spread out all over the world, and it was very good. So the CIA would always kind of approach them to be like, hey, can we like sneak a guy in here, or can you kind of put this guy on here, give him some credentials and be like, we're just going to send him over there and then bring him out. Like, and they would kind of be like, yeah, sure. Like anything to help, chief, it's just that kind of attitude.
What can I do for my country?
Right. And, sentiments have changed because they've changed now. It's a weird thing, but I find it always really funny when I've seen Operation Mockingbird like pop up in certain hardcore conspiracy. I mean, not saying that we're not hardcore conspiracies.
Yeah.
Like, we're totally hardcore.
Part of it.
Are too hardcore, baby.
And I see people reference like Operation Mockingbird, and they're being like, when they see a news story and they think that it's promoting a certain narrative, or they feel like it goes against what they, what they've reasoned out, and they'd be like, Operation Mockingbird, look it up. And when you look it up, it talks about not necessarily the CIA pushing propaganda, but it's talking about how the CIA used or utilized the resources of certain media outlets in order to gather intelligence and things like that. Dude, so
now modern media, I don't think has to be influenced by any like power like that, because they're all influenced by clicks. And so if you haven't, like, now news companies run a lot of the times on click headlines. That's news now. Click headlines.
Yeah. Fox News is pretty effective.
Clickbait, man.
Clickbait, baby.
That's crazy.
Because you know how many times I've clicked on an article based on the headline and been like, holy shit, what? Started to read the article and been like, oh, this
is not right.
This is not right at all. It's just a catchy headline.
Or a poorly worded one. Like they worded it, or they left out punctuation that makes it like a completely different meaning. And you're like, wait, you just forgot a comma, or you put a comma in the wrong place to make it sound like this.
They just got CIA Dan. Dan thought Joe Rogan got fired like us.
I did. They got me. I got
clickbaited. You got fooled.
Yeah. And so there's a thing that it could be argued that, it's not really, I don't think the CIA, because a lot of people don't believe anything that they see in the news now, or a lot of people anyways, it's just not an effective medium in order to kind of disseminate fake stories, like completely fake stories, some things like that. And I don't think they're their own machine now. And there's so many media outlets now. It used to be back then, it's like, okay, you had like maybe like 10, maybe 15 really huge news outlets. Was it like the Boston Globe and like the Washington Post, New York Times? Can't remember what the Western publications are. Maybe the LA Times, things like that. But
you had a lot really back more then.
It was like getting totally fake stories, or like publishing something that was like not completely accurate. A lot of the newspapers still have that journalistic integrity. They won't publish something that is completely just made up off the wall, something like that, something that can be easily fact checked. It's got to be something that, if it were to be something that was I'm
But
not sure, like, you
man,
know.
honestly though, Dan, honestly, back in the day, how easy was it for a layman to do any kind of fact checking? Like if I was like in the middle of wherever I'm from, I'm not gonna shoot down any city, get us a 1-star, and I like pick up the morning paper and I'm like, God damn, these goddamn crusty jugglers are at it again.
To the library we must go.
Yeah, I better
Grab the nearest encyclopedia.
The newspapers back then were very competitive. So you'd have another newspaper fact checking the other newspaper. So to me, I would still think that, you know, most of these newspaper, you know, the people who, the owners and stuff like that, they wouldn't want another newspaper to get a leg up on them. Like if you printed something that was completely untrue or something like that, and another newspaper fucking fact checked you and took you to task on it, you'd be fucked.
Yeah,
Your entire newspaper would
that
be
doesn't
fucked.
exist anymore.
Back in the day, though, like we've seen what happens between the news channels, those fucking gang fights they have. Like I could only imagine with the fucking newspapers.
There's no touching of the hair of face.
Anchorman,
Everything
a
else,
documentary.
fair rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now you could watch the news on one channel, get the whole story. It's based on facts. They just pick and choose which ones they want to present. You change the channel, you get the same story, similar facts, but they choose a few different ones, and it completely changes like the bias of the article. Like it's like there's no like
Dude,
what's the news anymore?
It's a little kernel of truth.
And
that it all
honestly,
has.
it's there's this weird thing where it's like even and like I don't agree with all his views, but like with the Joe Rogan getting COVID and stuff, like CNN reported on him and they altered photos of him to make him look sicker than he actually is, and they just legitimately just were making up things.
And they were
about
mad that he got better.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing about that too, it's like with the whole ivermectin thing. Again, not campaigning for ivermectin at all, but you know there's human grade ivermectin. You can get ivermectin, you know, prescribed by a doctor. It's used to treat parasites, and then just to go around and be like, oh, he's taking horse dewormer, you know, it's like that's not true. He's not fucking slurping fucking horse paste from Buckerfields, right? Like he's taking the actual shit that's prescribed by a doctor.
That drug is like a wonder drug for its purpose. Like the WHO is like, this is one of the major drugs that help, especially the emerging world. Like it's a huge beneficial drug for humans, but they make it sound like it's only but they make it sound like it's only for horses. And you're like, but it's not. But
it's not for
don't take the horse grade medicine.
No,
don't. How about this? How about if you want to, you talk to your doctor, he can tell you not to. And then
don't.
Yeah.
No, you can even, we're all qualified to tell you not to take animal medicine. That's good. We can do that. Don't take animal medicine.
Yeah, but we just said if you want ivermectin and you want to talk to your doctor, you talk to your doctor. Don't just go go buy.
But that's the problem.
There's a 99% chance
like,
he's not going to prescribe it for you. But
there's such a divide in the media and stuff of these stories, and then people, you know, Zell, to your point before, there's such this click. And even if I were to click tomorrow on a story that was heavy right wing and I hit a like button, I never like anything on Facebook, but if I just looked out a story and I went, I like this right wing, Chris Sky fucking arrested again with his giant ass dentures talking some shit. I hit like, guess what? Facebook's like, hey, he liked one of these videos. Fucking, let's give him another. Let's give him another Chris Scott. Let's give him another. Let's get him further right.
Flat Earth.
He likes further right. Yeah, it's like, you know, they're hiding God.
Okay, let's bring it back to this era, because they are two completely different eras of news, but kind of similar things that kind of happened. So where were we? We derailed ourselves a little bit.
I mean, that's pretty much the thing, is that the CIA would apparently, like, when they would purchase these newspapers, or they would, you know, fund these newspapers that were failing, or for some reason or whatever, they would pick them up at a bargain. The stories that they would run, I mean, it's to actually maintain the cover that is an actual newspaper. You know, you still had to do that. You still have to be like, your paper would still have to maintain some type of credibility for it to be effective. Because once it loses that credibility, it's like, then why are we even using this thing? You know,
right?
Like, I would think that would come into that they would take that into account. So printing out these newspapers, it's not necessarily that they wanted to disseminate totally fake stories. It's that you're printing out newspapers where that's kind of like what some news media do now. You word it in a certain way to promote something. If you want to disseminate like fake, false information, like that was kind of something that they might have tasked with reporters or operatives that were working out there. It's like, hey, you're going to cover this gala ball, or you're going to be at this meeting or this whatever. And if somebody asks you about this, tell them this, this is what we want you to say. We want to tell you that, our missiles are made by aliens and can avoid all radar detection, whatever, and then we just want you to tell them that.
And then next week on the Weekly World News, you'd see that pop up.
Yeah, next time in the Informacja Moscow or something. Muscat. I don't know how to say it in Russian. But that's kind of what they did. But again, the CIA had it was a very long and whether they still maintain those kinds of connections with the CIA. I still think a lot of reporters would view it as a favorable thing, because it's like, if you're a reporter of any, of your salt, I would think that you would want these kind of relationships with people in the intelligence agencies, because you want the scoop.
Yeah.
Like
if there is that stuff
going on, scoop.
If say this operation continues, like right now, say it's going on right now, they got their tentacles, right? They got their tentacles into stuff. In 2052, when the documents are released, when all these guys retire and or pass away, we'll know the truth. That's kind of like, it takes that long for all this stuff to come out.
There's no doubt in my mind that the CIA still maintains relationships or is in the business of making their own fake news. Other countries are getting good at it. Russia, North Korea. If we are going to think for a second here that the CIA is involved in some sort of fake news, covert social media operations overseas and in the United States, I think we're kidding ourselves. Like there's, as much as we're like, the IRA and the Russia, they're doing all these stuff. I guarantee in some documents in the next couple of years, we're going to see that they're doing that stuff to other countries, to us.
They're probably trying,
see it.
But there's countries like China and North Korea that are almost completely cut off, from us. So it's a little harder, I think, where our internet's completely free and open. You can access anything. So it's much easier for like those countries to implant news here, but they don't even have, do they even have Facebook in China? I don't think so. Right.
I mean, they only have they have that
their
one
Facebook
internet portal. Yeah. They kind of have their Facebook and stuff.
Their Facebook, their Google.
Yeah.
Yeah. So weird.
But yeah, I don't know if we want to get into final thoughts or kind of what I can just like, I don't know if are we just voicing opinions and whatever. Like,
yeah, let's get into final thoughts.
My final thoughts is that this whole thing, like the Operation Mockingbird, it's like, it's very, from the stuff that I was reading and researching, is that the CIA really viewed some of this shit as a majority of them thought this was pretty dumb. They're like, once you get to a point where your own stories are bouncing back in like at you, it becomes it makes your job a lot more difficult. You're like, why am I sorting through shit that we made up? And I had to trace it all the way back to, I'm Tom down in like information analyst, on the 3rd floor, and I got to go up to 5th floor to find out fucking Jerry put this fucking story in some Africa Times, like
he's
Ethiopia
like, gotcha,
Times.
bitch.
I'm like, motherfucker, I've been tracing this story for 7 months, and it was you that did it. Like, man, I'd be pissed. But I equated it a lot to like the use of like biological weapons. A lot of militaries, like you might want to be like, oh, they're experimenting with biological weapons or using them. A lot of militaries don't want to use biological weapons because if you use a biological weapon, it quickly gets out of control and it's very unpredictable.
Yeah, kind of like Operation Sea Spray that we talk about on Patreon.
Right.
Which they did.
And yeah, I was like, it has unpredictable effects. You can't decide where it's going to go one way or the other. It affects your capacity to do your job. So I think like if they learned from it, But they, back then they thought it was something that they should be doing because the Russians were doing it. It was something that they felt like, well, if the Russians are doing it, we have to combat them. We have to. That was our only real weapon back then, was like money. Throw money at it. If we can outspend them, if we can buy this and we can, pay these people to say this, then that's what we're going to do. But at the end of the day, they're like, this is like putting out totally fake stories and stuff like this. Or a lot of people say Operation Mockingbird is the CIA putting out propaganda or stuff like that. Did they ask certain journalists and stuff to word things a certain way? Sure. But at the end of the day, they didn't force them to do it. They asked the journalists to do these things. And the journalists did it because they felt like it was their civic duty. It was a sentiment of the time. It was a product of the time. That's what I would say.
And money.
Here, you want my final thoughts? Hold on. You want my final thoughts? I have to say it.
Yeah.
Dan's part of the CIA. He just fucking proved it. Dan is a CIA operative.
His implant.
Dude, 100%. Like, come on now. That's it. That's my final thoughts. On to you, buddy.
Dan's
That's
CIA,
it.
I guess.
He is. Listen to that. That was, buddy, CIA ink. He just read right off the fucking sheet, dude. Wasn't even dry yet.
The CIA meddling in any form of media back in the day, I think, opened up Pandora's box. And I think we are living in a society today that is directly impacted from those choices back then to try to manipulate media. The reason we have people that will not believe a single thing they read, no matter from who, what, where, when, any site, they're like, if it's printed, I don't believe it, is directly because of this kind of shit. Operation Mockingbird. And this is fact. That's the shittiest part, is that like they were making propaganda. They were trying to sway opinion. They were making false stories. And while some did bounce back on them and stuff, and at the front, they're like, yeah, it didn't really work out. I'm like, bullshit. They repackaged it, they restructured it, they retooled it, they figured out how to perfect it. And there's not a doubt in my mind that the CIA or other agencies like it are still doing this to this day on various grand scales. With the reach you have now, with fucking nothing. You know how easy it would be now to put out you can put out a fucking meme with some info at the bottom, and people will share that post like their fucking doctor told them. Right? It's insane now. So to even think for a second that they stopped and this was like, oh, this was too much work. I believe that they said that. And they're just like, oh, yeah, we're not going to do this. It's too much work for us. Bullshit.
It's easier now than ever. It's
easier now than ever. And I believe they just got the hang of it. And they were just saying this to cover their ass. And I believe that in mark my words, in years and years from now, we're gonna see FOIA requests and stuff that pop up, and we're like, man, I've been saying it for years. These motherfuckers are doing some sort of social experiments on us through social media.
Oh,
right. And whether they're getting these big corporations like Instagram and Facebook and shit to just even be a part of it, like they were going to the journalists back in the day and been like, hey, kind of work with us. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we would like you guys to do this, like, post this story or whatever. Like, and they're like, hey, what's the harm? We're helping the government, right? Now we got a leg in, because if there's ever any issues, we can say the CIA, we did this with them, right? It's like, I believe these deals are still being made, and the CIA is probably not dealing with reporters so much anymore as they are with like developers and like people working in Silicon Valley. That's what I think.
I like that.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Now, for me, I'm like a hybrid. I think it started with like, it was like liberty, property, privacy versus like, social equality, state ownership, all that. It was like an ideological battle. I truly believe that's how it started. Like post-World War, number one, you had this giant military machine that was built over World War II, and you had a lot of people employed, and I think you kind of had to keep it going, number one. Number two, this like they were battling for like not control, but like for allies. Really, like you're battling for Europe with different ideologies. So it makes sense that if they found out Russia's like the Soviet Union's doing this, that they would counter it with their own program. And if that's using journalists or implanting CIA agents as journalists to get overseas to infiltrate and collect secrets and, relay it back, I believe that's how it started. But then once they figured out that, that like they can do this kind of stuff, there's just no way that I don't think they just give it up completely. And I like that, like the social media, like as the modern day news, there's only, because now there's like 5 major companies all competing. They all have so much fucking money. So I believe now, maybe if it's not CIA anymore, the lessons that was learned during the Cold War adopted into big business perhaps. And now big business just has the money. Which is scary. Which is even scarier in my opinion. Because now you're not really, now big business, they're multinational, right? They're across the world. They're not just in America. So it's like America first. It's like profit first. We're in America, Canada. We're in all these countries. Like whoever's got the most money, like that,
We've been seeing that.
There's no Senate select like committee on intelligence for businesses, for big business.
We've been seeing in Canada recently, we have an election coming up, and probably our furthest left-leaning party outside Green, NDP, one of their platform promises is, they want some pharmacare, they want dental covered, like universal dental, and how they're going to pay for it is if you make 10 million or more a year, you're going to be taxed heavily because anyone uber rich in Canada, NDP, they want you to pay your fair share because right now that's not happening. Now in Canada, a lot of the media companies that are owned by big business have been running nonstop attack ads on the NDP saying, if NDP are voted in Canada, we are going to be, our society is going to be crippled because we're going to go into such a deficit because there's no way to pay for this. There's no money. Everyone's taxes are going to go up because we have to pay for all this shit. Yours and mine, your taxes are going to be up because we got to pay for everyone. It's like, but that's not their platform. Their platform
Telecom CEOs won't be able to buy their 8th yacht. Like,
right. And then you start to look, and one of the reports that came out is that, one of the newspapers, one of the media outlets in Canada that's running heavy stories about how the NDP is going to run Canada into the ground financially is owned by Jeff Bezos. Or Jeff Bezos. Or Spacos as we call him, right? So when you start to see that a company owned by the second richest man in the world by 4 saying that, if Canada puts this in because he doesn't want Amazon and Canada getting tax heavier because it's not good for him, it's not good for business.
Well, Amazon pays no corporate tax anyway, so it would be shareholders.
But the thing is, I'm like, you see those newspaper ads and stuff, and it's like, dude, I run into people that are like, poorer than shit, and they'll be like, well, those, hey, they earn their money. They shouldn't have to pay. I'm like, you got 3 teeth.
You pay?
Yeah,
I earn my money.
Yeah.
Why should I have to pay fucking taxes?
Yeah, I pay too. And I was like, motherfucker, you got 3 teeth in your mouth. Wouldn't it be nice to get those fixed? Nah, not at the expense of my buddy Jeff Spacos. But anyway, so we're seeing that today. I agree. It's now moved. It's moved to something darker and worse, in my opinion. To where, because these corporations and stuff, their loyalty doesn't lie with people, doesn't lie with nations, it lies with profits.
It's a money building machine.
Right. And we've said it on other shows, they take on a life of their own. Like, it's not like you're going to go talk to any single person and they believe like, hey, no, we should definitely fuck over all these people to maximize. Like, but that's what, when you start to get it into the corporation, everyone's working that. Well, it's not me. It's not me. Everyone has a fall of like, it's not me. It's not me. And it takes on a life of its own.
When they get so big and they make so much money for so many shareholders, now that corporation is directly responsible for the livelihoods of many of those people. So if it goes down, they're like, fuck that. So they'll put, they just want to keep everyone happy as part of the company, and they just consume anything on the way up. Just gobble it up. Andrew, you gave final thoughts, or you got something else besides Dan's a CIA operative?
Well,
that was your final thought.
I fucking strongly, I'm not drifting.
I'm pretty
Don't worry,
convinced.
tapping your phones tomorrow.
I'm fine with that. Oh, I was gonna listen to some weird stuff, but no, I completely agree. Like with it being, you've never had as big of a fucking net as you do now, and it would be the easiest time to do it. Makes the most sense. Why would you just give it up now? That's intelligence agencies' bread and fucking butter. That's what they're here for. That's why they exist. It doesn't make any sense for them to not be doing it now. Right? When they got busted for it initially, hey, we wouldn't do that, just the Russians. Growing up, all you ever heard was, when you heard propaganda, what were the people you thought of? You thought of fucking Russians and you thought of the Nazis.
We
Only the bad
literally,
guys
at
did
the
that.
offset of this, we talked about how they said they weren't going to send any more satellites to spy on Russia. And then immediately after agreeing, they just like...
No. We said we're not going to send any U-2s to spy on Russia. Then we set up satellites. We didn't.
Satellites, right? So it's like, we're no longer going to manipulate your newspapers by social media. We never agreed to that.
I think you got to be extremely naive to not think that they would use this great of a resource to their fucking advantage. It just doesn't make sense to me. I feel like everything down to every businesses, every advertising companies, everybody uses it. You'd be insane not to use it. It's just like, it's money. I don't know. I can't wrap my head around them not utilizing this.
Yeah,
I would also say we already said today, Braden already said, nobody believes anything that they read. So I would think it would be just it wouldn't be a worthwhile investment on their part. I mean, I would sign more on board that the corporations have taken over the whole fake news sector, and the fact that you don't have a lot of independent nonprofit news sources, or largest ones are for profit.
Yeah.
But you still have those sources. And
so now they're just putting out the truth and expecting people to fucking believe the opposite. So it's working.
I just feel it's at this point, it just feels kind of why put your effort into that when you could do something
all right,
else?
Dan, quit trying to get us off the trail of the CIA. I know we're getting too close. This makes so much more sense. You're trying to get us. We're obviously right on the right path, and you're trying to throw us off. It starts to make sense why you question a lot of these conspiracies
I was going to turn this whole episode into a how to fact check stuff, and how to critically think, and how to analyze articles and pick them apart, and being this is propaganda and this is real news. But you guys don't want me to do that, and then I'm going to say, okay, I'm not going to do that. So I think you guys are trying to just keep everybody in the dark here. So I don't know. Mace just trying to bring some light, and you guys are over here putting me shoving me down in the basement.
I get my news from the one credible source on planet Earth that can't be tamed. Fucking Papa Lex, Alex Jones. That's where I get my news.
Papa Lex and Facebook comment section.
There's no better place to get your news than
and your local rant and rave Facebook group. That's where I get my news.
Was Dan really in Thailand at the beginning of the podcast, or was he at CIA school?
CIA school.
Do we know for sure?
Well, I was in Thailand with Dan.
Yeah, I mean, Braden was in CIA school with me.
No, after the fact. I'm talking about when the podcast first started, when Braden was here. He was planted there to meet Braden in Thailand.
It's all unfolding right before our eyes.
It's all part of it.
Wow.
It's all come crumbling down.
Anyways, why don't we...
I'm made. Extraction now.
Family Jewels has dozens of cases of the CIA, that were illegal, kind of, or at least they're in the gray area.
The whole church, that was the whole point of the church committee, the church committee. And then there was one other, there's 2 or 3 more investigations into specific stuff that came out during the Family Jewels. There were tons of other subsequent investigations.
Yeah. The church committee, AKA Operation Oversight.
Yeah. Exactly. But that's why, and that's what ended up establishing the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence Services. That's now you have publicly elected officials who are put on that committee to oversee.
There's more checks.
How many elected of the only 2? There's probably only 2 you could choose from that were paid for by parties that have huge corporations. Yeah. I'm sure it's all fair and above board now. You're selling it.
Dan's 3 letters. CIA's 3 letters. It's fucking all coming together, boys.
That checks out. That checks out.
I'd say so too.
DAN, CIA.
Hey, that's it. Busted.
We went on our own, like more of an opinion based at the end, but there was dozens of times that you can look up at the CIA, they're crossing the line or at least in the gray area. And did that continue on? Probably not in the same facet, because Dan just said there is more checks and balances now for these agencies. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I hope.
Back then we said it was the Wild West. They were kind of making up the rules as they went along. And yeah, they've reined in a lot of this stuff, but there's still shit but they've definitely probably gotten better at operating in those gray areas.
We'll get to the NSA stuff another time, because that's like the modern day version of
that's the fun stuff.
That's fucking crazy as well.
It's fucking
bananas. You can go all day.
NSA officer who's listening to us right now.
Yeah, no word of a lie.
Yeah, his name's Dan.
You want to know why Dan uses a green screen? Because if he turns it off, it's just you just see all the CIA offices,
all the CIA recording guys like back there.
No, this week's Theorite of the Week, Andrew. I think Andrew liked it the most, so let's let him take it.
Dude, yeah, how could you not? This week's Theorite of the Week is Jared Birch with his. Honestly, everybody got a part of this meme, but he's winning it strictly because of Braden. So he's got everybody as Power Rangers when they're getting ready to morph. And he's got Braden hold up his fucking little, what do you call it? A morpher? I forget what they're called.
Yeah, morpher.
He's holding up, and basically
his animal.
Braden, his animal that he morphs into, his Megazord, is a peacock. And that has never been more true on the planet ever. Everybody look at me. I'm a fucking peacock. I'm going to talk louder than everybody. Just pay attention to me. Braden. Perfect.
I wasn't impressed.
It's pretty funny. It was funny.
Jared Birch, that wasn't my vote, but hey, congratulations.
Okay, well, how about this? Dan, you know what Dan's fucking Zord is? It's a Maestrodon.
That's pretty good. I thought it was pretty funny.
That's fucking hilarious.
That was pretty good.
Zell's is a monkey, which, yeah, that would make sense to me. And I'm the white mongoose.
The white mongoose?
Or I'm the white long goose, actually.
Long goose?
Might have been a typo.
Hey, what?
I'm not
That's
sure.
it. That's
I'm good with it. I'll take it.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, it should be short goose, but yeah, that meme is awesome.
We'll make sure
it's cool.
Braden and Andrew are putting together like memes and fan submissions of the week every week, so you can find them on our socials or on the Facebook group.
The Instagram one is, it's funny? I didn't actually mean to do this, but actually, I did mean to do this. It's funny.
I added it.
Did you
notice that? I added it.
No, I left it out.
Oh.
Yeah.
I knew you left it out. I went in and added the picture after your post. So it's in there right now.
Well, these guys always, it's not my fault. I'm such excellent fodder for everyone to do me. I'm such a muse that everyone can, I inspire so many people to be creative and make artwork about me. And
hundreds of thousands of years after today, we'll find statues of Braden.
Yes. Well, you already do. Look in the past,
style.
Same body type. But
you can keep the fucking Greek statues are perfectly proportionate already.
Yeah.
So give them a little fig fucking leaf.
These guys always give me a hard time making fun of me when I post stuff like that. I'll do like a meme roundup and I'll grab like the favorite ones and they're like, oh, you just grabbed the ones you
just you.
I'm like, well, no, I'm like, it's literally everyone's making fun of me the whole time. So I already posted a couple more about me. So I was like, all right, I'll throw these guys a bone. I'll leave out the Power Ranger one of me.
Yeah, right. You just hated being a peacock, dude. The minute I posted it in the group, you're like, you didn't even acknowledge it. Everybody else is like, yeah, that's gold. Form of peacock.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's good shit.
It's you, buddy. Awesome.
All right.
It's all right.
If you're not already, you want to support your boys, support your favorite show, head over to patreon.com/Alien Theorist Podcast. Access to the live stream, Discord, bonus episodes, and also bonus shows now. Kind of separate shows forming on the old Patreon feed there. This week's newest supporters, Lazy Viking 9, or Preston. Wanted to put both his names in there. Full year pledge by Tony Burns, Briar Rideout, Zach Thorne, Jess, Michael, Christina Jordan with the Ron Pond approved pledge. That Mac.
Oh, yeah.
Gooch Nasty Funk. Interesting. Take care of that.
I like it.
Jack Nasty and Elaine Tremblay, thank you very much for supporting the show. And as we always say,
Keep those eyes on the skies.
you know,
Peacock!
peacocked.
The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place. That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable. Ah.